Hello and welcome to Show Studio. We are here for a very exciting discussion about what we saw yesterday in Paris, Haider Ackermann's debut for Tom Ford. My name is Dal Choda, and I'm just going to let the rest of the panel tell you who they are before we really get into some juicy questions. Zoe, start with you.
Yeah, hi, I'm really grateful to be here. I'm Zoe Broach, Head of Fashion at the Royal College of Art and co-founder of the label Boudica.
Hi. Hi, my name is Olu Odukoya. I'm an artist and also an editor of magazine Modern Matter, Kilimanjaro, and Arts and Fashion.
Hi, I'm Zazie Ifore. I'm an artist, a broadcaster, and a contributing editor at Vintage Vogue.
Hello, I'm Felix from Vienna, and I'm the co-owner and co-founder of Backyard Archive.
So Felix has just flown in for this. The rest of us have kind of had an easier journey here. And also some of the panelists here have notes, which is always great for me to see, but also terrifies me, because I feel like you've all already formulated some opinions. But I would love some fresh reactions first to what you saw yesterday. Does anyone want to begin with their response on what was shown yesterday and what we can see currently on the screen?
Can we see it on the screen down there as well?
Oh yeah, our TV's still off.
Turn the telly on.
Let's get the show, turn the telly on.
Turn the telly on.
Let's get the show running again.
Currently watching it upside down in the reflection of the mirror. Quite a nice way to look at it, actually, to give me a fresh spin. I don't want to be first.
No, one of the things I was really interested in terms of this slight, and then we often do this here at Show Studio, there's a slight delay in our reactions to it. And I think in that sense that we're often so instantaneously asked to tell people how we feel about things, I found it really fascinating having this almost 24-hour delay to actually formulate any meaningful opinion. So as an editor, as a writer, I'm really fascinated in that slight, being slightly behind, and also having a break and being able to formulate an opinion other than, oh my God, this was gorgeous. So I think there's something in that I'm interested in unpacking with all of you. But generally, Zoe, what did you think of the show?
I watched the end first, and it was interesting because he didn't start with all the suits coming out in the show, and for me it was just a question because I watched everything all at once. There was such a beautiful power of that cinematic moment, and overall for me, I think there's such a beautiful balance in design, which I think is incredibly hard to achieve, where he's managed to create design clothes that hover between something that's really kind of honest and simple in the most phenomenal color or material. So here you can see, he didn't start the show in that way. So I was just really, okay, what happened there? Because for me, this is like super amazing. But coming back to the kind of design of it, I feel you always want to feel jealous. And I think I'm jealous of the design that he's achieved in this, where there's such a beautiful balance in the idea, that there's a kind of sense of design and strength without it being noisy. And I think that's incredibly hard to achieve. And I think as a designer, I think he should be incredibly proud of himself and his team, and I assume Tom would be too.
And that idea of jealousy I just want to pick up on, is that something you've always thought?
For sure, like you want people to be better than you, no? You want to be around people who are better than you. You want the world to be moved by the best. And so, fashion can be it can just sit around and give you sparkles, but it doesn't make me jealous.
Yeah.
And this made me feel like, it's some really beautiful moments.
I'm curious, Zoe, as a designer yourself, is that something that is in your mind when you're designing a collection, though? Like, are you trying to elicit jealousy from other designers?
No, just elicit trying to get it there. I think, it's just...
Does that ever come to you? Because I know, the only thing, I don't design clothes, but in terms of other creative disciplines, even DJing, might be things that you're doing. You might hit upon something and you're like, this is sick. You know that another DJ is going to know what that is and really enjoy it. Maybe the average person will be like, whatever, it's fine. But that thing of maybe if you hit upon something interesting or innovative or new, you know that other people who get what you're doing will enjoy it.
Yeah, but I think That's an interesting question to him, because there's definitely notes in there that I think there's some obvious notes and there's some more subtle ones that what you're saying, I wonder whether he feels that in what he's designed.
I wonder if he does. I mean, when I was kind of looking into him, he's definitely the designer's designer, and so many of the greats have given him like massive nods, and you can see why. I think he's like craftsmanship and skill and restraint is incredible. I think it takes a lot of brilliance to make simplicity look excellent and amazing. I think I'm someone who likes excess. I've pared it down for Tom today. I don't tend to wear black.
Squeaking in your chair.
I know, squeaking in my vinyl, but I love excess. But one thing that I can definitely concede is that, you know, you can hide a lot behind excess. There's a lot that you can camouflage behind ruffles, behind really thick fabrics, and I think a collection like this, he has not afforded himself many places to hide. He has really, I don't know, like you just see sheer brilliance, you know, there's no kind of cheap tricks.
And I think what is interesting about this is the link, how it wasn't obvious that the link between both designer could actually click together, because I can see some Tom Ford in this kind of in this fashion show, because of the strong element and the women really strong, and I think with what makes them really, when you look at it, how they fit so well together is because of their love for cuts on the way they express that, and I think he kind of is more personal in the way he's always designed for people. Is more personal, and Tom Ford, the other hand, is very strong. And I think he blend that together by keeping that spirit, you know. And then it's kind of really elevated. I think he's going to do really well with this, because it's kind of elevated to become very modern in a way, and the way he uses all the silhouette of colors, and you pair all those colors down, and the lipstick he uses on women is very sexual. Very nice.
And
I think it was really, I kind of really like that idea that gives you the feeling of Tom Ford, but in his own way, because it kept the principle that they add together, which is the silhouette, the cut, the tailoring. And the drapes.
Felix, I just wanted to ask you, because one of my first kind of things I wanted us to think about is, what do we know of Tom Ford? What do we expect from the name Tom Ford now, maybe not the man? And what's your experience of working with Tom Ford's kind of archive, I guess, from various periods? Or just what's your knowledge of Tom Ford in the sense of what we should be looking for?
My strong point is definitely Haider's work, because we own the biggest archive of Haider clothing in the world, and from there I can see many influences and references that Haider put into this work, but blended it together in a way that it's super appealing under the Tom Ford name, because it's not just Haider, it's like Haider combined with Tom Ford, and that's what I was super exciting to see, this like sensuality from Haider, mixed with this classic tailoring, this sexy Tom Ford clothing. And Haider managed, like, with these hints that he does, you know, the colors, the fabrics, the cuts, just making it totally special. And just what I always loved about his clothing is, like, you want to wear it, you know. It's super wearable, and it's not just for the runway. You want to own the coat, like, or the jacket or whatever it is, and just wear it, and that's what's amazing about.
Because I mean, I think this is an ongoing challenge in fashion, is that when we say things are wearable, that's often people go like this. But I often think that's this about all the showering of love that Alaya is getting. But none of those clothes are real propositions for me. They make great images, but actually they say something else about how, you know, perhaps the team think women should look, or whether they can even sit down or move around. They do something completely different. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but I feel like the idea of these being incredibly, I was about to say practical, but
that's
you know,
that beautiful balance that I think is that line and architecture material.
They're real.
That is so it's incredibly difficult, and I think they're clothes that you want to feel on your body, and that balance, you know. And so some of the leather coats, like how heavy is that? How light is that? And what is that architectural space between your body and the material and the shape, that outline, kind of presence, absence of what clothes are when they're within the world, not just on a catwalk. I just want to say, though, I have to say my critique is, I think only 80% of this collection is absolutely perfect. I still think there's a place where, and I think that's really amazing for him, but I think he's still attuning, and I think there's going to be another level to come, that if we're at this point now, where he goes is going to be really powerful, more powerful.
I agree with that, actually. I feel like they are two designers that have very romantic approaches in different ways. I think like Tom Ford for me is always like much more like bloodthirsty, like lust, glamour, like really a kind of, you know, bloodthirsty sensuality. Like, and I love it. It's what I like to the max. And very sensuous in a bold way. And I think Haider's work to me is much more restraint. It's a lot of sensuality, but it's different. It's a kind of, there's an interiority to that romance. It's the romance that you need to kind of unfurl and you need to get underneath. And I think the meeting of their two sensibilities, it is like love, like a romance. That, you know, you start slowly and then I can see that he's feeling out how to approach this. It's like a sensitive lover, basically. I think
he has a swagger, Haider.
He's got a swagger, but I think he's coming quite sensitive. He's not come in all guns like, this is the Haider era. It's sensitive to what Tom's codes are, but gently infusing his. For me, I would have liked to see a lot more lustiness in this. I don't think there was enough kind of...
That's a different panel.
The bright red lip, that vivid kind of like vermilion red lip is definitely a nod to the sensuality and the kind of, I don't know, like lustiness, like hot-blooded, you know, a hot-blooded woman that I think Tom always embodies.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that, because I think Haider's aesthetic for me, it just kind of veers toward this kind of slightly too cool for my blood.
And I think maybe it's because I felt maybe the way fashion is going, or where people, you wanted to personalize design. I like when people personalize design, when you have a dress and think that's my favorite dress, you know. Whereas sometimes when you have fashion, when it's just like visually, everybody could have an opinion about it. These are maybe the way you sew, things are put together, just your jacket, you just do that jacket, you put it on, you can do something. And I think that is how settled he is. So it doesn't really mean it's kind of like, really kind of like, it's very, very more personal, because it's almost like when you make clothes for women, you want them to feel, you know, there's something about it. So I think it's more kind of like a quiet way of showing that, because there are dresses that you can get in there and you will be able, the way you feel about those dresses on the catwalk, it will make you feel very, in the red carpet, you feel more inspired, rather than sometimes where sometimes you wear a designer clothes, but the clothes is actually wearing you, and it's always from that moment. Whereas this, you remember that dinner that you went with that dress,
I would say,
and that sometimes there's a shift now. I don't know.
But for me, I would say from the beginning, that's one of Tom Ford as a designer and as a label's strength, that there is this kind of overt sensuality, but they are all really wearable. There's like silk shirts and they drape beautifully. He has made clothes that are always impactful, but never feel like statement outfits or dopamine dressing or any of these like awful terms that have sprung up. You know, it's nothing as crass as that. They are impactful without feeling like, you know, a sort of costume or spectacle. Whether he's having like all these multiple graphic prints and like furs. Like, for me, the benchmark, I should have said this before, was the Autumn/Winter 2013 is like my favorite. It's graphic, it's excess, but it's incredible. And it does not feel, you know, there's that thing, particularly nowadays where we're kind of photographing and presenting ourselves all the time, that anyone who dresses in a kind of overt or distinctive way or statement way, it always feels performative in this day and age because of the nature of how we communicate. But for me, like, these clothes are saying a lot, but you can tell it's for the wearer. It's not about, I don't know, it's not about being like loud for the sake of being loud. Yeah, it's...
I think one of the things also, I mean, there are words that often come up, you know, a lot of...
The excess that I want from Haider, go here.
A lot of people are kind of thinking about this idea of, you know, Tom Ford and the words that we all throw at him, and that he's kind of also supported, you know, the sexiness, the eroticism,
yes, erotic,
the actual,
exactly.
the sex. And with Haider, we always talk about sensuality, romance. You know, even on his notes for the show, he signed them off saying, "I believe in love." But in terms of framing Tom and himself, he said, "He is nightlife, I am the morning after."
Right.
And this is where our dance begins.
Beautiful.
And in the staging, there was a nod to these sweaty kind of mirrors, you know, this kind of post kind of coital.
End of the
almost.
You know what I love
Yeah.
about it? I even love the way the women were I don't know, maybe Christine was the way this feel.
holding.
That is just why I'm saying it's more when you make clothes where you just, you know, it's almost very kind of romantic, very kind of Hollywood in the 50s, where, you know, it's just the gown, and then you just fell in love with that. Yeah, and I think this is,
Dunaway reading.
and I think that says a lot for you to be, you know, to be able to be action while you're walking so slow. And when you do this, we all know what that means. There's something romantic about that when somebody do this, or you know. And I think very.
One of the things also for us to kind of think about is that, you know, this has been created in 6 months. You know, Haider was only announced as the creative director in September, the beginning of September. And I guess, you know, I'm a huge fan of his period at Beluti, which is some of the most exquisite shows I think I've ever attended. Because they don't translate really through a screen right now. There's something about, also I always kind of mention this when I'm on the panels, is the idea that I think it's really important and healthy that if you are a kind of a scholar of fashion, or you're studying fashion, is to not just look at Vogue runway and to look at the still images. Because actually, I don't think the stills of the runway images of this collection actually do as much as the video does. I think when you see them in motion, you get a much better, they look quite cold and a bit cool in that sort of, you know, Northern European way that I don't think really works for me in the pictures. They seem very, very, very hard.
Castings.
And the hardness has more blood and veins and body heat when you watch the video. I think the women particularly feel less brittle when you watch the video. But in the images, there's a sort of hardness to them that to me feels quite unmodern, but that's a different kind of conversation.
I agree.
What do you think about
that they have a kind of, they're like robots in places.
Yes.
I mean, there's just harsh line in the hair.
In a way that is very out of step with, I think, a lot of the ways that we talk about beauty, the way we want models to be, the way we want fashion to be. And I guess there's something interesting in that, actually, Zoe, I wanted to ask you. Is it the role of a fashion collection or a designer to make clothes that are right for right now, or right for a very near future?
That depends on the label.
It's $1 million question. But for this here?
I think that's so unique to the designer and the label, and he's working in a business as well.
Yeah.
So at the same time, we all know there are moments in the last, say, 25 years, which is a relatively modern practice, actually. It's not that long.
Yeah.
There are seminal moments when something pulls us forward. I'm not sure this is Haider's job at this point, working at Tom. And I kind of feel, the harshness of the women is something, I'm not quite sure what I feel about it yet. I know that will make great visuals and inspire a lot, but I'm not sure what the intention, because in a way those kind of grimy, you know, the morning after, damn, I don't wish I looked like that, but that's not a morning after look for me. To me, it would be a little bit sweaty and grubby and cigarette stained. And that, I think, for me, I'd rather, you want it up, I'm looking for it to attune down and be closer to the grubby mirror, but with the kind of most phenomenal shoe, you know, that kind of balance for me.
And I just thought it's so nice to see this balance in fashion as well. You know, that there's so much ways you can curate sort of like ideas with fashion, and which contemporary art has. There's a shift in balance into, do you have to use what you have, or you really need to talk about what you have, in a way. So, with contemporary art, you can have or design, you can have a white album of the Beatles and it'll be your favorite album, but it doesn't really need to be all gone blazing. And I think there's something that I liked about this, which also is a very good balance to the state of fashion at the same time, where, and other things around it could be different. And that's what I liked about it, because you can do a lot of things around this presentation that it just gives it a different dynamic to it. And I think the casting actually is really good. The casting is really good. And you don't really see the way it uses casting, in here compared to, I've seen a lot of shows, but the casting here is really good. And it was giving you that blonde hair, the blonde, the glasses. If you make a film and this is in a film, it will be a great film.
I guess just to think, because one of our lovely viewers has just asked a question on YouTube below this video of us, asking about the sense of body diversity or lack of in this. And shouldn't we be in a space now where we shouldn't be talking about that, i.e. it shouldn't be a thing that's missing? How do we feel about the lack of, because I guess the look here is so androgyne, kind of alien, interspecies, it's so specific, and that does kind of cut out a lot of people that have, in the last 5 years, now finally found fashion labels and brands that embrace them in a way that this doesn't. Absolutely.
I feel like for me that was always a slight disconnect with me and Haider's work.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. I really appreciate his exquisite skill and the intricacy of the cuts and the drapes and all the stuff. But for me, as someone who is not slim, I am always very I cannot really do this kind of diaphanous moment that I think is a sort of the lightness of Haider's clothes does not work on a body like mine at all. I don't feel supported or comfortable in that at all. And I think that's what I've always enjoyed about Tom Ford, is that there's always, he speaks to the showgirls and the glamour girls, and what the glamour girls need is support. You need support. And that's what I mean about the kind of things that I'm drawn to, whether it is a fur or a ruffle. These are things that support you and kind of support the silhouette. Yes. Not all of us can really get away with this. It's not going to translate in that blue dress behind on someone who is not rake thin. It's just not going to translate the vision.
See, I think it can. And I just think we've just got to make sure that exists. And I think fashion is super guilty of, we do the right thing, and then they slide back to what they know.
I really beg to differ.
In 2025, I would love
I beg to differ. A lot of these silhouettes will only look good on someone who is tall and thin. If you are bigger, for me to even give a modicum of the runway effect in some of these looks, the coat, yes, definitely, structure, support. But some of these looks, I would need to wear something like a 7-inch platform just to give me that sense of elongation and proportion that these clothes work with. It does not work when you change that.
But I think these ideas about beauty, what would work, what wouldn't work, these can be easily contested. But I think my challenge is that I think it's important that the designers or brands themselves even show that that's possible.
Precisely, because that's the reason why there are plus-size models in this collection, though, is because half of these outfits, these looks, would not work.
Yeah.
And if there was a plus size, I can tell you what they would have done. The plus-size girl is going to be wearing the leather trench coat with a sort of skinny heel and cinched. It's like...
Well, I think because it does...
that's what they would put the plus-size girl in.
Because it does draping. It drapes a lot. So I think when a designer has the idea of draping, it's always very feel like you can actually work with the person you have in front of you.
It depends on the weight of the fabric, I would say. Lots of designers use draping, but if you're using
African tying, just all draping so you can
that does not hang in a certain way, the draping on a bigger body is going to catch on parts of that bigger body. It's not going to just fall down like that. So it depends on the fabric that you're using and the materiality. And I think this is something that a lot of designers do not take into account.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as grading it up.
No.
But Felix, I wanted to get your sense of this idea, because it does feel like both Haider and Tom Ford have a look. And when we say that, we don't just mean the clothes, we mean the people in them. What's your sense of the Haider look?
From my experience, this has been definitely a thing for Haider, that he caters more towards the slim, skinny guy or woman. You can see it in the shows. And from our collection, I also know that it definitely makes some garments difficult to wear. Even like for the menswear, some of the earlier trousers, they were cut so slim that you really have to be super skinny to even wear it, otherwise it wouldn't really look right. But in the later seasons, I think he went more into the relaxed silhouettes, especially for his menswear. I think for the women's, there's always been this contrast between super slim and relaxed, oversized silhouettes. And that's what also was surprising for us to see then with people that come to us, that there are many people that fit the Haider clothes that you wouldn't expect it to, because there's a wide range of silhouettes he does. And of course, his super skinny suits will only fit the right person, but on the other hand, the oversized stuff, and especially that's with the Tom Ford, I think for the menswear also, it's much more wearable than his own work, because it's more relaxed and more for the grown-up gentleman that buys the suit not in a 46 but probably in a 48, 50 or something.
Yeah. Zoe?
I'll take the size 50 kings.
Can I ask you a question, Felix, because you know the most? With this new collection, what's your percentage that you think is Haider and Tom?
That's super interesting, because I think it's a mixture between Haider's own brand, what we see from there, the work he did at Baluti, which was a lot. You see a lot of the work he did at Baluti here, I think, in the Tom Ford collection, because it was a bit more cleaner, not so much draping, and more classically cut.
Christina, can we just see a Baluti show, just because I want to?
What I'm missing a bit here from what he did at Baluti, but maybe we'll see it when we have the pieces in hand. He did those amazing details, like the colors, the collars that he turned up, and you had the color, the contrasting crocodile or python underneath, or the details inside and the lining. And here at the Tom Ford, I don't see too many rolled up sleeves. You know, the lapels are worn normally most of the time. So that's what I was even a bit missing here at the Tom Ford, is like this super intricate detailing. But maybe we'll see that when we have the pieces in hand.
Yeah.
And also from the ready-to-wear, it's currently, from what I can see, but I'm much more used to Haider's own work, it's more Haider than Tom Ford. There's surely many references from Tom Ford that I don't get now at the first glance, but I see a lot of his own work, especially the later collections, where it almost seems like it's a fluid connection to this work from the last collections he did in 2020 to now 5 years later. It seems like a continuation on some sorts, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's funny because I also felt that looking at Haider's later collections, and then also seeing the two collections that Peter did, it felt like there was this kind of, it was like the crossfader was going across, that like Peter was kind of sort of muting down into Haider's world. Those collections weren't high octane, which is probably why he wasn't there very long. And I think it's in step with the times. And I just want to say, it's not to say that I think that this collection that Haider's done for Tom Ford is not wearable for myself or plus-size people. There's loads of things that I'd love to wear and I can see myself zhuzhing about in. But I do think, on the aggregate of looking at his kind of design aesthetic and his collections over the past 20 years, it seems to me that he's not designing for somebody in a body like mine.
I guess I'm just really interested in this, we live in the age of...
Tom Ford does. Tom Ford loves a woman, and that's why I love him.
We live in the age of image making, and I think designers who have been very smart to recognize that once they are more inclusive in the images they are making, even in small ways, in the celebrities perhaps that they dress for the red carpet, the custom things that they do, or who they throw in a campaign, or who they put on social media. That really helps. And I think there is something about this kind of, this rigor that obviously Haider is excellent at, that feels almost slightly, again, out of step with what I think we should be expecting everybody to be doing. And I think, Zoe, you mentioned there's that kind of amnesia that fashion has of sort of going, yeah, we've done that, we accept all you people now we'll just forget selling to you or showing you.
But I also wonder whether, again, 2025, it's okay to change things again or try things, and I wonder whether what the runway is, we understand there needs to be sales, but you can do that in a showroom, and I'd be really interested. The word cinema and film and cinematic has come up across a lot of people's kind of comments and conversations. He obviously has these relationships with Tilda, Timothy, blah, blah, blah. We know Tom has directed films. But that also allows there to be a more human emotional relationship in all sorts of different ways. It's not just the kind of, there's a kind of equation, a catwalk and these thin models that don't smile, don't have emotion. And I'm kind of interested in that kind of very emotional place from 25 onwards. Can we? I mean, we could be watching something from '83, the kind of system. And so, what's the system that could present and offer a kind of more beautiful, painterly, inclusive, cinematic version of these kind of clothes that would include and would also just kind of raise and push us and allow us. Visualization is absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
We need that. And in 2025, we have a responsibility for that.
But I'm often thinking this about salon shows, that have the same kind of epic, almost quite costumey glamour from a particular period. They make incredible images, these things, but actually I guess you can assess them, but they feel so out of sync with anything real. So they become more fantasy-like. And I wonder whether, as magazines, as image makers, as photographers, have kind of become more commercial, perhaps, in what it is that they're making. They feel more organized around kind of what marketeers, marketing directors are asking them to produce. If you look at ad campaigns, for example, against white backgrounds, where actually now maybe the show, like this kind of epic staging, this kind of very, the drama in these brittle silhouettes, in this kind of uniform, I don't know, it just feels like that, this level of rigor in the show, which is very much in Haider's collection too, feels like it's doing what I used to get from magazines. I think editorials have stopped doing that, and now these designers are kind of doing that.
I'm curious what you mean by rigor in this in the context of what Haider's done in this show.
Yeah, I mean a certain sharpness, a certain uniformity.
Like an austerity.
It's really clear.
Yeah.
There's a very clear thing happening here. There's no grey area. And it feels incredibly faithful to people that fit it or like it.
Yep.
And I think it's also quite interesting to just look at the wave of shows that are happening at the moment, and so many of it just feels like stuff. And this doesn't just feel like stuff, because actually in that tightness of its vision, you kind of feel like it's saying something incredibly clear. Whether you want to hear it, whether you like what it's saying, these are very abstract responses, but there's no denying that this seems to have a very clear point of view.
I think I agree with you. I think what he has a purity that speaks to a different time when people were allowed to do one thing and do it really well.
Yeah.
And we're not having to, make content, art direct the campaign, do the BTS video, do a podcast, and all this other, all the many ways that anybody now doing any kind of creative work, whether you're a designer or anything else, you're splintered in 100 different ways. And he speaks to a kind of purity of like, I'm not doing everything for everyone. I'm not even including everyone. I'm just doing what I'm doing. I have this vision and it's to the nth degree. And when I was looking at his older collections, like as far back as 2003, the word that came to mind to me was aesthetic. There is something very sort of severe, almost, like a monastic. It's really pared back, and to my sensibilities, there's an austerity there that he has always had, and I appreciate that he's stuck to it and the commitment to that in this. I think I enjoy people being uncompromising, because
he said the morning after.
Yeah.
And just on the Instagram there, you saw a picture of him. He looked way more like the morning after.
With the newspaper.
Yeah. So I just think I just think there's somewhere that he will go in the next couple of seasons. I think this is the beginning of something, and I think for me it's maybe it's a little tight, and there's room for that to become more emotional, more cinematic, and that can be inclusive. And really, it doesn't stop you having this pure language, but we have to. Yeah, we're just going to be present to our time, and we're in 2025, not 1988.
Ollie, what do you think about the images that they've released with, as an art director, what do you think about these images here that were previews for...
The show?
Yeah. What do they say to you? Because as Daisy was mentioning, that's such a huge, this is such an important...
But this particular image is really, I've seen this image is an artist that does this particular style, which is very well known, and it just documents his relationship through the glass, and he's always in the picture. So I kind of understand that the message from this is not really related to with fashion in that sense, but I think maybe trying to bring all the culture of other disciplines into art is kind of really communicating with it.
Do you think this is if you just purely saw this as a precursor to the show that we've watched, is it advertising what they're selling? Did you get what you expected?
No, not really. No.
It's like kind of Helma Newton meets Jeff Wall.
It's saying totally. Maybe because there was a canvas. There's the open canvas here. Maybe that's where there was, there's hardly any clothes.
There's no clothes.
So it's almost like, that is just so that you don't know what you're gonna, expect. Maybe that's that kind of language. But I didn't really understand this.
Felix, what was your response to this image?
When I first saw it, I immediately recognized the aesthetic of Haider, but I was wondering what's the meaning behind it. And now I think it was it's not really connected to the collection itself, but it's more like just a visual mood that they put out, but also to sort of show the contrast, because when you see this at first, it's like, oh, it's Tom Ford, it's going to be super sexy, super naked, and then in the end it wasn't that way. So maybe it was even playing a bit on that.
Maybe.
And what I heard is that this photographer took the portrait shots of Haider for the Tom Ford announcement, and when he was doing the photos, Haider was complimenting his poses, and then he, like how he was taking the pictures, and then he asked him to do this exact thing for the campaign. So that seems how it came.
Yeah, like a self-portrait, really? Yeah. So is that the photographer?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a self-portrait. That's what I'm saying. There's a contemporary visual that is really based on this self-portrait through a mirror and
I think, but as a designer, you're not just a designer. You want to explore different mediums. And I feel like that's him. Like we've seen many designers, like Tom Ford did. He became a film director. And so, in a way, that's as a designer, you have a million ideas around a point.
Think it's nice?
No, I think it's nice for fashion to embrace. To embrace other disciplines. I think that's I think that's more modern in a way, that which all the successful fashion brands do. It doesn't really, because also sometimes it's so really, like you were talking about with the show. It's good for people to see when you talk about the old Tom Ford, the way Kate is. We need those kind of balance of those differences in order to actually to identify that people that truly embraces that aspect of design, rather than it becomes a template at the same time. But I like when everybody brings, when there's especially that's I don't know if I can mention another designer. Bottega was just very wearable, but the setting and everything that goes around it, or even Prada, but everything that goes around it, the set, the architect, the everything, is totally very, in its own medium, it's actually really, really good. And you just kind of don't shape it. You have to just put them next to each other, and then you have this incredible magic. You can have this incredible magic when you have a fashion, and then you have these other disciplines, and you elevate them to the same.
I think
Does that make sense?
we're all a fan of, you know, cross-disciplinary or the things that can, interesting new synergies that can come when you know, merge disciplines or collaborate across disciplines. But for me personally, I don't think that series of images was doing or saying anything, and certainly not anything of interest. Looks really regressive to me. This is not a world that I want to enter, I want to be in. It feels dystopian, it feels regressive and cold and boring. It's, you know, not...
For me, it just makes it, you know, it's like Avedon, it's Helmut Newton, it's Jeff Wall. It feels he's telling us the things that maybe he's loved and he doesn't want to make
in the bedroom.
clothes and no, I think it's more than that.
But I think it's right that we
Boring,
do.
thin, white, young, and cold. Boring. All the things I have zero interest in. Turn the heating on, do something interesting, get someone interesting. This is boring.
It seems like a lot of the commenters on those
Yes, they
posts
agree because they know this is boring.
Because I guess, you know, we have a few comments from, again, our viewers that I'm going to sort of round up into one as we fold in the conversation. But it does feel like the kind of verve, the sexiness, the party, the sort of camp of Tom Ford, as Tom Ford, has kind of gone and it has fallen by the wayside.
What are you left with?
What might we be losing, Zoe, by pushing that to the side? Because I wonder, because I think there is this kind of issue here where fashion, the people, or the fashion industry feels like it doesn't really address those things. It likes to make things much chicer and more sensible, more...
Then what?
Than let's say the previous kind of iterations of Tom Ford that were a bit sillier and more glitzy and more
I
glamorous.
wouldn't call them silly, Dow. We didn't fall out.
They were,
They were.
But what the
they were
question is-
nighttime, and so they were in that.
What's silly about Glamour? You're trying to wind me up.
Okay, my take on it is I still feel that we have to allow him to kind of tune in. And he said where Tom was the nightlife and I'm the morning after. He's not quite woken up yet. And so I think that comes, and I think he will offer that, and you see that in the portrait that's of him. And I think that swagger that he has, that is kind of a little bit more quiet. I think it's okay for Tom Ford to be like that for a bit.
Yeah.
We don't need it always to be just what Tom did, because that would be what Tom should do. And we have to accept that this is going to go through a different kind of lens. I just feel like he is like 80%, and maybe he just... Yeah, as a designer, I think it's going to be very interesting to see where he goes. And we're like different people wanting different things. I love the idea of design where it has this, it's not loud and it sits in the place that's like offers something that so like pierces the world in a really beautiful way. I think it's really hard to do. And I think he can do it. And I think he does it here, and I think he'll do it more. And I think we need that in balance with other things.
But after the other thing, I think it's just a good. I think it's a good balance, and I do like when people make things in their own vision, in their own way. I feel a little bit sometimes when people make kind of like. Because fashion also, you have to take us to where, you know, it's kind of a vision. And sometimes with fashion, you can go back and forth and everything works. Because that's how life is recycled itself. So when people have a particular vision, a particular idea, it opens doors for other things to come into it. Rather than with everybody does that. And I think for me, from my own creative point of view, I like when I make things that is different to where everybody else. And I know it's not working. But I felt it's so important for me as an artist to have that alternative, no matter how 1 or 2% it is.
100.
And I think that is what is I think that's the good balance when we have that and we have the Tom.
I'm not saying that I wanted him to do high octane Tom facsimile, to be clear, at all, but I wanted a bit more than what I got. I can say that. I do appreciate there's a sensitivity in his approach, that he's not kind of straight out the gate trying to reinvent glamour, which is a code that clearly he is not familiar with, much less able to now put his own real spin on. Exactly. So I can feel and see that he's feeling it out, and I really appreciate that. but I want more. And this idea of the morning after, the after party, I'm curious as to who Haider has invited back to his house. That's what I would like to know. Yeah. Who is on the guest list for this afters?
Okay, well, if anyone knows, please let
me
us
know.
know in the comments below. Thank you, everyone here, and thank you, everyone there. Do subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment, post, let us know what your thoughts are, and we'll see you next time. This was the last panel, I believe, of this season, but I'm sure we'll be back soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.